Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'll be reviewing for you WarioWare Inc. Mega Party Games for the GameCube. If you're thinking, wow, that's an eerily similar title to WarioWare Inc. Mega Micro Games on the Game Boy Advance, and that is absolutely deliberate, because the team saw how successful Mega Micro Games was, especially since it was the first in the series, and requested that it be ported to the GameCube so quickly that it only took them 6 months to make the game. To put this into perspective, that's even less development time than Majora's Mask had, which only had a year of development. And boy can you tell that this was as rushed as heck, because this is basically Mega Micro Games, but worse in almost every way, except for one, and that's that this game has an absolutely amazing instruction manual. I was very fortunate to be able to play this on actual hardware, and my friend that I was borrowing it from happened to also still have the manual. And it was an absolute delight. Wario and his employees write out the instructions for the games using their own personalities, which means we get Wario talking in full sentences well before WarioWare Gold did it. And you even get some mini-games in the instruction manual, such as mazes and a coloring page. And it makes me wonder, if this much effort was put into the manual, why didn't the rest of the game receive this treatment? Normally when a franchise comes on the GameCube, they take advantage of the advanced processing power to make it look leagues better, such as what Super Smash Bros. Melee did to Smash 64. But in this case, you actually have all of the original micro games from the GBA version, and that's about it. You might be looking at this footage and saying, man, Paul, your capture card is terrible. Why couldn't you get the whole Game Boy Advance logo in the frame? Because that's how the game actually is. It is very much not my capture card going on the fritz. They were so lazy that they had to shove an incomplete logo of Game Boy Advance at the bottom, and they couldn't even have the unique graphics between each micro game that the game on the GBA, which is far less powerful, had. You just get this image of the character's face that just moves their eyes and mouth up and down, and you get a plant that either falls over or blooms depending on how well you do. And the games themselves are basically identical to how they were on the GBA, down to the sound effects and the voice acting being compressed. Though on the plus side, that means that we get all of the same lines from the legend Charles Martinet. Roll the clip.
Hello, it's me, Mario. Woohoo! Baby Mario, let's go! Yahoo! Luigi #1. Ho ho! Mario, I'm coming. Luigi. Wario, have a rotten day. Yahoo! You gonna eat that garlic? Everybody goes before me.
They didn't even bother changing the button prompts to make them look like the GameCube controllers, which even Ocarina of Time Master Quest did, and that was more or less a glorified ROM hack of a Nintendo 64 game. What's this game's excuse when it's based on a Game Boy Advance game? Now, if you like the premise of Mega Micro Games, if you like the idea of playing these mini games that are so quick you barely have time to process them, then Mega Party Games is a good game on that front. It just feels like it didn't fully take advantage of what the GameCube is capable of. Now, that being said, I do find it cool that all of the micro games from the GBA game are here, and they are playable. It doesn't feel like they suffered an awkward transition going from the D-pad to the control stick. They feel like they were always meant to be on the GameCube. It's just that you don't get stuff like the character cutscenes introducing each category of micro games, and you don't get the unique backgrounds, and it just feels kind of soulless, which is saying something, because generally speaking, a lot of people said that the GameCube era was where Nintendo had some of the most soul in all of its time. Now, to be fair to Mega Party Games, it's not completely a demake, as there are a couple of new features and enhancements to be found here. First of all, one of the biggest changes is that there's a multiplayer mode. Now, I was not able to test this, because again, playing a GameCube game on actual hardware in 2026 is easier said than done. But from what I've heard, they basically let people simultaneously play the existing microgames, but just with varying conditions, such as at certain points you have to not play the microgame, which might have been a precursor to that Game & Wario stage in Smash for Wii U. You also have the ability to see an album of all of the microgames in the game, and you can play them whenever you want. So rather than being surprises as you progress through the game like Mega Microgames did, you can fully practice every single one of them whenever you want. You also have a floor system where you start out with just the Mega Microgames single player mode, where you just try to complete as many microgames as possible with only 4 mistakes being able to be done, and then you do a boss stage, which is considerably more advanced. After you beat the initial story mode campaign, if you can call it a story mode, because unlike Mega Microgames, it's just the microgames without any story, you unlock more doors that give you stuff like movies, which are these random cutscenes that appear on the title screen, which would have been nice in the main game, but no, it has to be shoved into a side mode. And things that randomly appear on the title screen rather than naturally being incorporated into the gameplay. Then there's character intros, which again would have been nice to know before you got into these microgames. Then on the second floor, you get variations of the single player mode, such as only having one hit to play as many microgames as possible, playing it so that you have all of them in the whole game, but in a random order from all of the various categories. And then there's a time attack mode, which forces you to try to play the games as quickly as possible. And this is another one of my biggest gripes, is it feels like there's so many extra steps to get the credits. You literally have to first play through the single player mode, and then you have to beat Mix It Up, and then you have to beat the first level of time trials. Like, why not just give you the credits after playing the main single player mode like Mega Microgames did? And then there's the issue of GBA connectivity. Now, during the GameCube era, quite a lot of GameCube games gave you the option to connect a Game Boy Advance to the GameCube with a link cable. Now, to be fair, I used to have one of those, but I have since gotten rid of it, and I don't remember why. This particular game, though, I never did get a chance to try it, because only just a couple of weeks ago did I even play Mega Party games for the first time. And from what I can tell online, the only thing the Game Boy Advance does when you connect it is it acts as another controller. It doesn't act as a separate screen, but it pretends to be a GameCube controller. So say you don't have enough GameCube controllers for multiplayer, just have a Game Boy Advance and a link cable. And that's it. It feels kinda cool, like if you have the accessories, that's neat, but I feel like it could have done so much more. Maybe add extra microgames, or maybe have like asymmetrical microgames, kind of like a precursor to the Wii U. Like, that would have been really cool if you had to switch your focus between the two of them, but again, this might have been the prototype for Game & Wario doing exactly that. Now, if you've never played Mega Microgames, I think WarioWare Mega Party Games is perfectly serviceable. The microgames are a lot of fun, and it is really cool to get better and better at them as you progress up each floor so that you feel like a champ when you finally get to the boss battle stage. In nearly every single category, I kept saying, oh, this is impossible, I'm never going to be able to do it, only to keep retrying over and over again and again on actual hardware, so no save states, no rewinds. And then I said, wow, I genuinely feel like I conquered this impassable obstacle. But I would also say that Mega Microgames is much more accessible and much better of a game, unless you really like multiplayer. It's on both Game Boy Advance, which can also be played on a GameCube, by the way, and it's also on Switch Online. So if you have the Switch Online expansion pack, then you can play this with save states and rewinds. So in 2026, a Game Boy Advance version of a game is better than its GameCube remake. So lesson learned from this, take longer than 6 months to port over a game, and don't just try to chase success and popularity and sacrifice quality in the process. Now, as far as if you should buy this game or not, I'm not sure how much this goes for, since I don't really hear a whole lot of people talking about this game, and as a result, more niche GameCube games I think don't sell for as much. But I would say if you have the capacity to rent it or borrow it from a friend like I did, I think that would be the best way to do this. And just stick to Mega Micro Games since the micro games are all the same anyway, so you might as well get the superior experience. But if you get this and you don't have Switch Online and you don't have a way of playing Mega Micro Games, it's serviceable, just don't expect it to be mind-blowing. So with that, thank you very much for watching, my friends. Let me know if you have any questions, and until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye!